enterprises are investing heavily in cloud and AI. Without the connectivity as an enabler for all of this, investments won't scale. I'm here today with Accenture to talk about how we can make that full digital stack work for the better of the enterprise customers. So, Jeff, as you think about this one, how would you see mobile playing an important role together with the other investments that enterprises are doing?
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me. I think it's incredibly critical, right? First and foremost, that connectivity is incredibly critical to this value chain. I think the second thing is Accenture did an enterprise research. And one thing interesting that we found is that when you look at the increased spend of the enterprise on digitization, it was 162x increase. But when you looked at the network modernization increase, it was only 2x.
Wow.
So there's a huge difference in actually how much enterprises are spending. So it just tells you that the network and the connectivity is incredibly important, but you're starting to see that there's a lot of fragmentation in this on the enterprise side. So you'll see shielded Ethernet, you'll see unlicensed Wi-Fi, you'll see 5G, you'll see all these technologies, which make it very complex to actually operate, but even harder to innovate on.
And how is the cellular connectivity playing a role to possibly harmonize all of this?
Yeah, I mean, harmonized is a great word, because if you look at the enterprises trying to actually operate these complex connectivity pieces, if you have a global standard like 5G, and if you have an ecosystem that's rallying around it from the full value chain, from the actual device manufacturers to the network operators to the equipment, there's an opportunity to start to harmonize all of the enterprise networks. And there's a chance to actually move it and evolve it to a more wireless future.
And as in your role as a systems integrator with Accenture to really help enterprises make this work, what are some of the key things that you're offering?
Yeah, I think number one, there's probably 5 key ones, right? I think the first one is really helping to actually calculate and demonstrate the business value of the transformation and the actual reinvention you're about to go through. And that's a good business case, and actually sharing it with the C-suite to get the investment that's required to do this. The second one is really important. It's looking at the legacy processes and figuring out what parts need to be re-engineered, or there's a lot of mega processes in large industries where you need to actually reinvent that process. But that's important because if you are going to spend the time on the actual digital core, you have to be able to get the value out of it through the processes. I think the third thing that's really important is how system integrators can orchestrate that solution. And we call it creating a cloud-powered digital core. If you look at the connectivity layer, the cloud for the compute and storage layer, how do you look at the data and AI layer, and how do you wrap security around it? We're viewing that as kind of the cloud-powered digital core that you need to build to transform these industries. And then finally, how do you actually implement the solution? And then ultimately, how do you optimize and manage it?
So that's a lot of steps that an enterprise has to go through to really get to the full value, including, as you said, almost like process reengineering. So what are some of the business outcomes that you could see as an enterprise going through those steps?
Well, there's real world examples that are happening now. So we've worked very closely with Ericsson, helping one manufacturing company whose customers demanded that they increase the yield of their line. So each of the different industries require different kind of components, right? Sometimes manufacturing wants increase in yield. Sometimes they want worker safety. Sometimes they want to figure out the shift work. For this particular customer, Accenture and Ericsson worked together to certainly build the value case. Then we actually reinvented the process. And then we built that digital core with an edge. We used an edge solution. And the result was Ericsson and Accenture and our partners increased the yield by 30% of that manufacturing company.
That's an amazing result, actually. As we look ahead together to the collaboration and how we can continue to evolve and drive innovation, what are some of the things that excite you most?
I think one of the things that excites me most is all the opportunities to work with Ericsson in different components. You have the equipment for the public 5G, you have private 5G, you have the ability to even work with Vonage on the actual network APIs. I think what excites me most is really how do you actually use all of the technology of Ericsson with the actual professional services of Accenture to actually converge the network connectivity, the cloud, the AI, the security, so that we can reinvent these businesses.
Thank you. And as we look ahead and the continued collaboration between Accenture and Ericsson to really get the most value out of the enterprise investments into not only AI and cloud, but also mobile connectivity as a key enabler for all of this, really excite us both. So thank you very much for tuning in, and stay tuned as we look ahead.